they want to create chaos, fear, upheaval, especially in this period between now and 2030, when they want to transform human society. They're in the process of it. This whole pandemic hoax was massively part of it, and so's current events. Now, while they're doing that, they want the population looking in the other direction. They don't want them sitting back and connecting the dots. They want them constantly reacting to chaos, upheaval. And that's why we've gone seamlessly, and it seems to be like another random event. It's not. It's all part of the same progression, what I call the totalitarian tiptoe. We've gone seamlessly from the lockdown situation into the protests and the riots. Is a tidal wave of contradictions and ridiculous demands, which when you are comparing them and seeing that contradiction, you see crystal clearly that it's a scam. And then overnight, thousands of people are shoulder to shoulder in protests, and suddenly it's not such a big deal anymore. You see why this, on the face of it, ridiculous contradiction actually makes sense. The common denominator of everything that happens in the world is, does it serve the agenda of this global cult that I've been exposing for 30 years? Or does it not serve the agenda? If it serves the agenda, it is supported, it is not banned, it is not suppressed, it is promoted in the media, and it is allowed to happen, indeed encouraged to happen. If it does not promote or support the agenda, indeed challenges it, then it's not supported, it's suppressed, it's silenced, it's demonized. The foundation of the few controlling the many, at any time in human history, it's a fundamental foundation of everything. You must divide and rule the many. So it serves the agenda of divide and rule to have people under house arrest and everyone kept apart. It serves them with social distancing where everyone is kept apart, divide. It serves them to have people wearing masks, which means that human discourse and interaction is destroyed. So social distancing, masks, house arrest must happen. But hold on a second. It also serves the agenda of divide and rule to have massive racial division. And so social distancing, masks, house arrest is followed by no social distancing in the riots and the protests, but because both serve the agenda of divide, you have this apparent contradiction of social distancing imposed and then social distancing completely ignored. It's not a problem. But there's a common denominator between the two. They both serve the agenda of dividing and ruling the population. And this was captured so perfectly in one of the most ludicrous documents I've ever seen. And it was in the last week when about 1,000 doctors and medical people and others signed a letter when the protests and the riots began. And they said, these protests, brackets, including riots, should not be stopped because of the danger of the infectious nature of COVID-19. Because it's more important that these protests take place and be allowed to take place than what they claim is an infectious disease. I don't accept that, but they do. And in this same letter, they said, But this does not mean there should be a permissive attitude and acceptance of other protests, particularly, it said, protests against stay-at-home orders. So in that one letter, you had this ridiculous contradiction that it's okay to protest without social distancing, but only if you protest here against this. But other protests, it's not. It's still dangerous. Why do 1% billionaires like Soros, 1% corporations like Cisco, 1% foundations galore fund Black Lives Matter when they could not give a shit about black people or any other apart from themselves? Why would they do that? Now here's an irony of ironies. The same cult, families and networks that were behind slavery and the imposition on black people of slavery are the same networks, the same cult that funds Black Lives Matter. What is going on? Here's another irony of ironies. This cult, at its core, is almost entirely white. And it is funding Black Lives Matter in basically a war on white people. Get on your knees. Who benefits? Who benefits from me believing what the authorities are telling me to believe? Who benefits from me acting upon what the authorities are telling me to believe? Who benefits from this organization being funded by these 1% corporations and billionaires? And if you keep asking that question, the same answer will come back. Anyone that wants to advance the agenda of dividing and ruling the population and imposing more and more control of humanity. If you don't know where the world's being taken and who by, and the techniques of manipulation that take us there, then the world is a random place. But when you know where the world's being taken, you know basically who's taking us there, why, and the techniques of manipulation to take us there, suddenly randomness disappears. Because what is random to most people becomes a very clear sequence of events that is taking us in a very obvious direction towards the outcome. If people don't want to be scammed, first of all, they have to get informed, and they have to stop getting all their perceptions from the mainstream media. When you step back from mainstream sources and you look at alternative sources where narratives are being questioned instead of parroted and repeated, then you can start to see how the dots connect. You see, it's not what is happening that is the point of revelatory understanding. It's why it's happening. It's context. You know, the mainstream media will tell you that something's happening. They'll put their own spin on it, of course, but they'll tell you that something's happening. They won't tell you accurately, unbiasedly, why it's happening.